Good day, everyone. My name is Mariana Vidal Merino, and I will be moderating today's event. For the ones still joining, welcome to this webinar titled Open Source Tools for Project Monitoring and Reporting. This webinar is focused on practical applications from the forest sector. Open source tools, including GIS and remote sensing, hold the potential to contribute to the monitoring and the implementation of measures needed to achieve global commitments, such as the Agenda 2030 for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, the Post-2020 Biodiversity Framework, and the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. Equally important, open source tools are essential for tracking progress in addressing global challenges such as deforestation, land degradation, and climate change. The objective of this webinar is to provide practical insights about what are the potential applications of these tools, particularly in the forest sector. This webinar is possible thanks to the support of the German Academic Exchange Services, also known as DAAD, and the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ. This event is part of an ongoing online course titled Project Monitoring and Reporting Using Open Source Tools, which is a DAAD-funded online training. So if some of our participants are here, we are happy to have you today in this webinar. We organize this training, by the way, once per year. So in case any of you are interested in applying, be aware that we normally launch the call for applications during early 2024. And we share it in all our social media, both from Weltweit and BluoVerda. Both the online course and this webinar are jointly organized by BluoVerda and Weltweit. BluoVerda is a non-profit organization that designs and implements projects to support the sustainable management of natural resources and nature conservation in Latin America. We do this by empowering local communities, building local capacities, fostering innovation, and connecting actors across the globe. Weltweit is a German-based non-profit organization that focuses on empowering international students to become bridge builders to local initiatives in their home countries by training them, connecting them, and getting them the funds to realize their projects. Both BluoVerda and Weltweit are members of the Action Network worldwide. The Action Network is an alliance among different nonprofits who collaborate with the common goal of supporting initiatives in the Global South in favor of nature and local communities. Interested organizations or individuals can join the Action Network Worldwide platform as members. The platform is a place to meet people who share your interests, find out about job and financing opportunities to realize your project ideas, get news about training offers and events like this one, and networking in general. You can click on the link that will be shared on the Zoom chat to join the Action Network Worldwide platform. Today, I will be moderating the event. I am co-founder and member of BluoVerda and member of the Action Network Worldwide. And I have the honor of presenting you three remarkable speakers, all applying open source tools in different ways and for different purposes in the realm of natural resource management. With us today is Charlotte Bishop, Senior Project Manager at Kongsberg Satellite Services, KSAT. Next, we have Alex Wellenbeck, member of Weltweit and a PhD candidate at the Georg-August University of Göttingen. And our third presenter is Daniela Limanche, Project Officer at BluoVerda and a PhD candidate at the Technische University of Dresden. Next, we have the agenda for today. First, we have Charlotte, who will be speaking to the NICFI Satellite Data Program, providing satellite imagery to monitor tropical forests. Next, we have Alex, who will present Forest Management Inventory, FMI, using Open Forest Calc in Georgia. And Daniela will finish with a presentation on using the tool to evaluate deforestation, using the platform EarthMap, an innovative, free and open source tool to evaluate deforestation in concessions of the Tambopata Province in Peru. We will finish with a Q&A session. So please, anytime you have a question, feel free to write it on the chat and we will be collecting them throughout the presentations, and then there will be a space at the end of the third presentation for answering your questions. For our presenters, on behalf of the organizing team, we want to thank you wholeheartedly for taking the time to share with us your knowledge and experience. Please be reminded of the time that you have available for your presentation, but in case you lose track, no worries, I will try to remind you 3 minutes before your presentation ends. Our first speaker is Charlotte Bishop. Charlotte is a project manager and the product lead for optical and land applications at KSAT. She's also the program manager of the NICFI satellite program, a program funded by the Norwegian Ministry of Climate and Environment as a public-private partnership. She will be further presenting what this project is about and how it can help reduce and reverse deforestation in the tropics. Charlotte, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, hang on, let me just share my screen. Great. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here today and be able to present to this group and tell you a little bit about the NICFI satellite data program, which some of you may have come across before. But what I'd like to do is just do a bit of a recap if you are familiar with it, and hopefully reintroduce you to what this program is about, and also some ways this data can be used. Importantly, this data is not specifically open source in the grandest of respects, but it is a kind of publicly accessible data set that is being made freely available under a limited kind of license agreement for a particular period of the contract. So that's what I'll kind of talk about today, and also talk about the different open tools and different access points that you have for this data. So I'll get straight into it. So really I want to start by kind of going back a little bit to kind of give some background as to really what drove the Norwegian government to fund this program. So really, historically, looking at tropical forests, as many of you on the call may already be aware, data sets like Landsat have been used historically. They cover large areas. They have a long historical, very rich archive, which has been very well used for monitoring those remote areas of the world. The image on your screen is from a Landsat image from Brazil in 2018. And the image now arriving on your screen is the scale of the imagery that's available within the NICFI satellite data program. So we've gone from a 30 meter or maybe a 15 meter pixel of Landsat, depending on the product that's being used, down to a better than 5 meter spatial resolution product, which has been made available by this program. But it's important to note that this is not just a resolution change, it's also the cadence change of how often those collections are made over the area. And I'll talk a little bit about kind of what makes this product a little bit more special when we go into a bit more detail. But just to kind of show the step change in terms of the level of detail that you're then able to see when you, of course, get to higher spatial resolution. I also want to touch on and acknowledge our other partners in the program as well. So the majority of the data that's available in this program is from Planet, and I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the products. But we also do have some spot imagery from Airbus available to some selected users. Perhaps there are some of you on the call who have the access that provides this kind of slightly elevated access to strategic partners from the Norwegian government, who are also able then to access a longer term historical archive of spot data. However, there are now some other public sources of historical data, including some of the spot data that can be used for all users. And I can certainly provide some more details in the chat afterwards if that's of interest. So moving on to the purpose of the program. So as I mentioned at the start, the kind of premise behind was moving away from these lower spatial resolution products to something that was higher spatial resolution, but that also was not limited by a license or cost, as commercial satellite imagery often is. So the idea behind this program, funded by NICFI, which is Norway's International Climate and Forest Initiative, known as NICFI, was to fund the access to this data. So they have essentially bought access to high-resolution commercial satellite imagery and made it available for everyone under this program. So I work for KSAT, as mentioned at the start. So KSAT is Kongsberg Satellite Services. We are an Earth observation service provider. So we provide different services from all different types of satellite imagery. And we run this program along with our partners Planet, who are a commercial satellite operator. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, and they have their PlanetScope satellites as well as SkySat. And also operated Rapid Eye when it was in operation. And then Airbus, which many of you will know for both optical and radar satellite systems, including Pléiades and Spot and TerraSAR. And so we're working with both Planet and Airbus, but this is strictly an optical satellite data provision that we're going to talk about today. So what you see on your screen here is the purpose of the program. This really underpins the activities that we do within the program and also the intention of how this data will be used. So this data really is focused on being used to help reduce and reverse tropical forest deforestation. And I'll show you some examples of how that data has been used for that purpose, and also some other examples of how this data can be used and the different tools in which you can access it. So really breaking down those barriers to access is a key part of what this program is providing. It's breaking down the access to the level of detail, the cost, and also then making the data as available as possible, where the license for such data has often been a bit more challenging. I think this is, I always find this slide is quite a good way to kind of start to explain what the program is and does and covers, because I'm quite a visual person, so this is quite a nice way to depict really what we're talking about when we talk about the extent of the program. So the image that you see on the screen, everywhere that has an image that's not grey is where the NICFI satellite data program covers. So this is between 30 degrees north and south, and it is focused on the tropical forest countries, which is why there are some countries in North Africa, for example, that are not covered by the program because they do not have any tropical forests, or they are not primarily tropical forests. So really the focus is all of the tropical forest countries within this area, and we'll talk a little bit about the products that are available a little bit further down the line. But I just wanted to kind of show this to show really the scope of what's being offered here, but also I think is a good point to note that this is really a new initiative. This has not been done on this scale before using commercial Earth observation imagery. So this is also quite a new and innovative program from that point of view. From our perspective as the program lead, we also run the help desk. We also do a lot of outreach and capacity building, like these kind of conversations. It's an opportunity for us to work with NICFI, work with other ministries, and work with other users who can benefit from this data, including, I hope, many of you on the call, if you're interested in the topic of deforestation, and ensure that you get the benefit from this data and can make use of it under the terms of the contract. So before we go into the details of the products, I wanted to just kind of touch on some initial statements or examples of how this data has helped to improve forest monitoring, even since the project began. So the project began in 2020, September 2020. So it's been running for nearly 3 years. But really what we have seen in terms of the use and the impact of the program is that the ability to have more information at a higher spatial detail has made it much more easy to quantify the level of change that's happening and the area of change that's happening on the ground. And also, because this is a tropical forest area and this is optical data, there is of course clouds which can be very problematic in these regions. And of course with Landsat, Sentinel and other imagery, it can be hard to get, it can take quite a long time to get a cloud-free image. The benefit that we have with the data used in this program, which is from the PlanetScope system, is that because of the nature of how that program works in terms of the collections from those satellites, of which there are over 150 of these satellites collecting with the same specifications, is that there is no tasking specifically involved. It's collecting every time it passes over the land, meaning that we're getting near daily recollect over an area, making it possible to build up a really rich archive that goes into the products that are made available in this program, and allowing us to actually reduce the impact of cloud in the products that are provided. It also makes it possible for forest countries to improve the statistics that they're using to report for their UNFCCC goals. I don't have any examples in this presentation, but that's something, as that reporting has only just the reporting phase has only just ended. That's something that we will be able to share more and more over the coming months with some really nice examples from different countries like Peru and Ecuador and Ghana, who have used this data to help improve the way they report their forest management activities. It can also provide information into the causes of change, whether those different drivers of deforestation, whether they be natural or human induced or a combination of the two, and provide some kind of near real-time assessment depending on the kind of access level with the products, but also how this data can be used and how the data can be inspected to best suit the analysis that you need to do. And we can dive more into that in the Q&A and provide some further information afterwards. And we can also look at different monitoring of degradation and also regeneration. So not just deforestation, but also restoration of forest areas too. And then we also have a number of users in the private sector who are using this data towards supporting their zero deforestation goals and supply chain monitoring. So it's really designed to be quite broad and to provide as much access as possible to as many different groups as possible, all working towards improving forest management and reducing the impact of deforestation. So we have some statistics and numbers here. I won't go through them all, but really the point of this slide is to show that within the last 3 years of the program, we've had a significant number of users sign up to have this access. So 19,000 users have the access to actually view and download and analyze the data themselves. But we have many other ways that you can access this data. So we have a number of what we call purpose allies or outreach partners, where you can find this data as a viewable data set along with their data layers. You don't have to sign up, you don't have to sign an end user license to be able to view this data within these tools, and therefore the actual breadth of the usage, active usage of this data is significantly increased. So if you're already using open tools and open layers, for example, from Global Forest Watch, from Sentinel Hub, which is a very common one in our wider field through EO Browser, then this data is made available within those tools, and it's an additional layer that everyone has access to. It is also available within the UN FAO Open Forest tools, and most recently it has been added to Restore. I need to update my slide. That came in Q1 of 2023. So for those using the Restore online portal to look at restoration areas, this data is now in there as well. And we have a number of other partners and supporters to how this data is used and also supported across different platforms. So we have an agreement with Google Earth Engine. This data is also hosted within there. So if you are a signed up user, and I'll provide details of how to do that at the end, then you can also link your account to Google Earth Engine. The data is hosted there. You do not need to download the data and re-ingest it into your Docker containers or the cloud buckets on Google Earth Engine. Everything is connected, so you won't incur any additional kind of storage costs for this data. And then you can run your analyses and other tools as you wish. We also have some limited access through Microsoft Planetary Computer to support some projects that we have been doing with them. And the data is also found within Mapbox as an additional layer to the story maps functionality that they have there. And these are just a selection of some of the different ways that you can access that data. I've talked a lot about the data, but not really exactly what it is. So I'll just spend a few moments talking about what the data is and how big an area it covers. So I've shown the graphic, but that graphic is 45 million square kilometers of land that we cover in these primarily mosaics. And I'm going to focus on the mosaics because those are the largest part of the program. We do have some individual scene information as well, and I mentioned Airbus data, but this is for a very, very limited, a tiny percentage of users have access to those data sets, and really the mosaics are the ones that are available on the outreach partners that I just talked about, and also the ones that all users will be able to view and download simply by signing up and making an account on our project page. So 45 million square kilometers is over 97 countries, and as I say, that's between 30 degrees north and south. And we provide a mosaic over this region, and I'm sure many of you will know how mosaics are made, but of course for any who are less familiar with ones on this scale, this is a consistent mosaic. So we don't just update the mosaic every month, we release a new mosaic over the entire area. So that means every month, every kind of first or second week of the month, we provide the mosaic for the previous month. So we update that as quickly as possible. But we also provide the mosaic in two different forms. We provide it as a visual mosaic, so more aesthetically pleasing mosaic. And then we also provide the mosaic as an analysis ready data set as well. It comes in 4 spectral bands, so with the near infrared as well. It is only a 4-band product. Some of you may be aware that PlanetScope has an 8-band product, but the 8-band doesn't go back far enough in time. So this is a 4-band product for the entire time period, just to make it as consistent as possible. And the data can be downloaded. It can be downloaded. You can do your own analysis. You can make your own derived products from it, and everything. And you can do all of that analysis under the license agreement that comes with the data. In terms of the license agreement, just to touch on that briefly, as I say, when you sign up to the program, you're signing up to accept those terms, which you'll be provided. And really the main limitation is the non-commercial usage, which I suspect probably doesn't impact this group too much, but just to mention it. But really the intention is that this is a perpetual license, so any data that you have downloaded, any data that you're using will always remain. You will still continue to be able to use it even after the program has ended, and the access to that will not be revoked in terms of the access of the data that you already have on your own systems and you're running some analyses on. So we really wanted to make this as easily accessible as possible and as a data set that people could continue to use even after the program ends. So I mentioned that the program began in September 2020. That's when these monthly mosaics began. So every month since 2020, we have covered this complete area. And the program runs until September 2024. So we will have monthly mosaics for that entire period. We also have biannual mosaics, which are available to all users as well. And those are 6 monthly mosaics from December 2015 up until we started the monthly mosaics. And all of those are made from PlanetScope data. So the native resolution of the mosaics that are available is 4.77 meters, if anyone wants a specific resolution range. And then, as I mentioned, there is some historical archive data. And I mention it mainly because we do have, it is mentioned in our documentation, so I just want to touch on that. It is for selected partners, so it's really the mosaic product that's the critical part of the offering. But I have a few examples that I want to touch on before I close, and to show some examples of how this data is been used by different types of users in different areas. So we've been working with an NGO in Indonesia called Haka, and they have been using both the mosaics, but also using the data through Global Forest Watch to take advantage of the alerting forest deforestation alert systems from GLAD and RAD that Global Forest Watch have, to use this for law enforcement. So to identify illegal logging activities and other impacts on one specific ecosystem in their region, the Lusa ecosystem, and where they're able to then download offline information that they can follow up in the field and actually hope to catch and also enforce action on those who are deforesting in those regions, which with quite some success. They publish quite a lot of material on social media about the activities that they're doing that use this program. We also work a lot with Amazon Conservation through the MAAP project, who are doing a lot of work across the Amazon basin in South America. And this example is from Chiribquete National Park. I do apologize if my pronunciation is not so good, but this example was actually from quite early in the program as an initial example of how the data can really quite visually even show differences, and also allow someone to very quickly kind of measure the changes even in an online tool like Global Forest Watch. So the top image is from October 2020, and within 1 month a portion of area had been cleared, and the extent of that area wouldn't have been able to be seen at the same scale from Sentinel or Landsat, and perhaps it would have taken longer to identify the extent of that change. We also have an example here from the Central African Forest Initiative, or KSAT, where they are looking at drivers of deforestation and degradation in this area. So this brings together 6 different Congo Basin countries, multilateral donors, and it's an initiative that the UNFAO are facilitating. And they do a lot of capacity building in this area to help forest countries understand the activity that's happening, help support their forest management, and help them understand how Earth observation and geospatial data can help support their reporting and activities and also enforcement. Then we have an example here from Mozambique, from the Forestry Commission there. The image on the left-hand side is a kind of classification from Sentinel. The red area was a denoted deforestation site. On the right side, you'll see the planet imagery for over the same time period, and the red outline that appears there is the extracted red from the classification on the left-hand side, just to show the difference there in terms of the quantification of the actual area of deforestation. So this information is used quite a lot in validating what's being seen in Sentinel and Landsat, for example, or what's been identified from the alerting systems, particularly when it comes to a deforestation change detection. And just 2 more examples before I go through a quick couple of tools and wrap up this presentation. We have a really lovely example where Rainforest US has been working with Indigenous communities, 5 different Indigenous organizations across 33 different native people in South America, and helping them to access and use and learn about how to access Earth observation data and how it can help them as an Indigenous community understand more about the land that they govern, and also understand about the impact that's happening from others on their land. And this is being something that's been supported by other NGOs as well, to help enforce and bring in additional actors to ensure that the impacts on Indigenous lands is reduced and reversed, and of course mitigated, so that those don't happen again. But the Indigenous populations have an extremely high knowledge of the landscape that they govern and oversee, and so empowering them with additional material that they can access on their phone as an offline map has been extremely useful for this community. And the lady you see on the screen here has presented with us at events on the tropical forest kind of usage of satellite data, and it's a really kind of empowering use case of how this data has been really useful to her and her community. The final example is, it speaks to a similar topic around Indigenous impact onto Indigenous lands by illegal mining in this case, but it also talks to how the media is also using this data to help with their investigations, to help support the stories that they are telling that are speaking to environmental applications, and also, of course, to climate change, where this data can be an interesting and additional supplementary resource for them. So this article from the New York Times last year was one that we as a program team had the chance to be a bigger part of than we had originally expected, and actually got the chance to provide some additional data outside of the NICFI program to help support in the investigation, and allow for this story to be told in full. And we have a number of these other user stories. I do not have time to talk about all of them today, but I hope that provides some general information on how this data can be used for some different applications. And I'm absolutely happy to provide some more information on any of those and provide links when we get to the Q&A section. So I talked a bit about the open tools, and these are just some snapshots of where you can find the data within the different tools, because it's not always in the same place. In Global Forest Watch, it's the imagery base layer that you can select. In Sentinel Hub, it's one of the many choices of imagery that you can select to search for. And in Sentinel Hub, you can also view the data as false color and view different indices as well, which is in the open tools, that's unique to Sentinel Hub. But that's not something that's available in the other open tools, other than in Planet Explorer, which is where the data is primarily hosted. So if we go to a Planet Explorer, which is once you sign up to the program, this is the first view that you will see. So it's exactly the same as the map I showed at the start of the program. And if you've used Planet tools before, it's exactly the same tools as you're familiar with. So you can add an AOI, you can do measurements, you can look at different dates, you can compare images, you can change the color representation as well. And you can also, you don't have to choose whether you want to use visual or analytic. You can combine the two, and however you wish to use them, you can use both. Both have been provided on purpose and in response to the feedback from users at the start of the program. We also have different ways to download the data through Planet Base Maps Viewer for very small areas. We also have ways to stream the data and API functionality as well. So for larger areas, you can also download in bulk as well. And the data is also available through QGIS and ArcGIS as a plugin, so Planet's free plugin in QGIS, and you have exactly the same access as you would do in Planet Explorer. As I mentioned, the data is also in Google Earth Engine, so you can just simply link your accounts together. Any problems with that, I'll post the help desk email in the chat. And then we have a range of different resources that are linked from our project page, which include webinars, so things like this, trainings, different courses to help you understand the data and also how to access the data. We also have a community forum where you can meet and speak with others. And we have a Twitter page where we post a lot of information about our events, repost user stories, etc., and things like that. And my final slide, this is where you will definitely find more information. I'll post the link also in the chat, but this is our main project page. It's where you also sign up, has a link to our help desk and all of the other resources that I mentioned. So with that, it's been a whistle-stop tour, but I hope that's been an interesting overview for everyone. And thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, for this insightful introduction to the NICFI satellite program.
You're welcome.
Very rich content regarding the wide application of these mosaics and data, and as well as the benefits of using several satellites at the same time, like yes, reducing the cloudiness that is such a common issue when trying to get good images for analysis. As mentioned before, we will have the Q&As at the end of the 3 presentations. So in case anybody has something to ask before you forget about it, just put it on the chat. We will be collecting those. And we will address, or Charlotte will address them next. Perfect. Thanks again. Let me share my screen now for a bit. It should be now there. And that's to present briefly our next speaker, Alex Wellenbeck. Alex is a forester and a GIS expert working in international cooperation since 2009. He's currently a PhD research at the Technical University of Dresden and of Göttingen, and he focuses on biodiversity assessment via remote sensing within the Caucasus Barcode of Life project. He's also engaged currently as a freelance consultant in forest inventories and monitoring projects in various countries. He's also a member and one of the co-founders of Weltweit and one of the core trainings of our online course about open source tools for project monitoring and reporting that we offer every year. Alex brings today a presentation based on his previous work on forest inventories using Foris, which is an open source tool developed by the Food and Agricultural Organization. So Alex, whenever you are ready.
Thank you for this introduction, Mariana. And yes, we are sort of jumping from the topics and the remote sensing images of the topics to a smaller mountainous country in the temperate zone and right there to the ground. And if you see, if you notice here maybe that I've changed slightly the title of this presentation, there was in parentheses after the open forest. Calc was explicitly mentioned, but these case studies and the experiences with the open forest tool set, yeah, includes more tools. So it is basically just about the entire open forest tool set. I am going to talk about how open forest helped forest management inventories in Georgia. And yeah, I will start with a very short introduction, first of all, of the country. Then we will talk about the situation at that point when the Georgian foresters were thinking about how these tools could improve their forest management. Then we will go together through how the tools have been used, and I will share at the end the conclusions or lessons learned from these endeavors. Yeah. So Georgia is, for those who do not know, it's located between, and it's actually bordering the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. And from that's, you see that in the overview map on the top right. It is the boundary on the north is the Greater Caucasus and the south is the Lesser Caucasus. So it is a very mountainous country, roughly the size of one of the German federal states of Bavaria. So yeah, not very big in terms of surface area, but it is considered one of the world's biodiversity hotspots, which is due to the extreme amount of gradients you can find. Of course, you have the altitudinal gradients due to the mountainous nature of the topography, but you also have a very strong gradient from the west to the east. Let me just see if I can use my pointer. For example, in this area, you will find what I personally found very peculiar. You have beech forest there where you have palm trees growing underneath, which is due to a subtropical climate. And in the very far east bordering Azerbaijan, you have semi-deserts where you still some leopards and hyenas roam. The project regarding the forest management inventory using open forest was sort of developed as a spin-off at the same time, because Georgia wanted to do a national forest inventory. And for that reason, I'm showing this slide. The difference is that for the National Forest Inventory, you want to know what is, you have certain parameters you would like to assess regarding your entire forest area of your country. And in the Forest Management Inventory, you're just basically interested in the forest area of a certain forest district, and of course, there are different information needs, whereas the National Forest Inventory is oftentimes just, as Charlie was just mentioning, the information is needed for reporting purposes to all these international programs like RED+ or the Forest Resource Assessment that is done, I think, every 5 years by the FAO. Whereas on the Forest Management Inventory, the objective is a little bit different. You have management questions to be answered. And in this slide, I'm just showing again the area that we will get to know a little bit more, maybe. Yes, Georgia, you might know, it was part of the former Soviet Union, and within the Soviet Union, it had a peculiar stand when it comes to forestry. From what I heard, it had a very strong forestry sector. It was well known for their forest research and their well-managed forests. And then with the collapse of the Soviet Union, somehow the administrative structures, they broke down. The Forest Research Institute was dissolved. And since the 90s, the forest management or pretty much all information gathering regarding forest was done in an analogous manner. That means for a 10 years forest management plan, the final product was a big book for the different forest districts. And they had, as far as I know, at least since the 90s, no systematic assessment of their forest resources, and no permanent sample plots as we know them here in the temperate areas, and the transparency and the transparency of the data collection was not what was desired, because most figures were just based on experts' estimation in the field. So when there was a forest management plan to be elaborated, the forest experts, they took a map and they walked through the forest district and per stand assessed the figures that were relevant for management. And now I have the pointer and I cannot find them. So there we go. Okay. So this was done in the forest district of Achmeta, which covers roughly 65,000 hectares of beech and hornbeam dominated forest. And every a forest district is basically, it's just an administrative unit, and it's subdivided into smaller units. The smaller ones would be for, it's actually called a forest unit, yeah. And in this case, we have 7 different forest units. So why did open forest come into play? I already mentioned that this was sort of like a spin-off of the bigger endeavor of having a national forest inventory in the whole country. And then people said, yeah, we also have to improve our forest management planning, and we would like to have a forest management inventory as a basis for sustainability and transparency. So open forest was developed more in the framework of larger scale forest monitoring systems, like a net forest, like a national forest inventory, and but with certain objectives. And one of them was that it would make the data management and processing a lot easier. As I mentioned before, when a forester goes into the forest, usually everything is written down on a piece of paper, which has its advantages, but it also has its disadvantages. So open forest gives the means to directly digitize the data that is being collected. And I think the biggest add-on using the software that is given is that it provides a certain data quality assurance, and if handled well with a little bit of effort, it can increase the data quality immensely. Because Open Forest because the FAO developed this for pretty much as an option for all the countries in the world to be used, they could not come with one size fits all option. They had to provide a very high degree of flexibility, and this is clearly provided by the software as an example, because it can be programmed in different languages. So we could provide a software that was written entirely in Georgian. And from my experience, also its capacity to be used in the field, since it doesn't require or Open Forest Collect Mobile doesn't require an internet connection, it seems to be a good match for the needs of forest inventories. This is not where it stops. I don't know how familiar everybody is with the wide range of open forest tools. We heard about remote sensing. I'm putting here all these icons, which are kind of self-explanatory, but you have, this is the Collect Earth that I think we might be hearing later more about. SEPA has been mentioned, and in this project, Open Forest Collect, Open Forest Mobile, which is, sorry, I'm confused with my pointer here, which is this one, and Calc have been used. And lastly, this resulted into a growing community worldwide, and I personally have been using this software since 2018. This is when this started in different contexts, and the support has always been really good and very, very well. And now you see 3 more icons. Those are the newest members of the Open Forest community, which will probably move the tools that are available now in an integrated manner into a more central structure. But what I just wanted to show with these icons is that it is under continuous development. So for any forest inventory, be it a national forest inventory or forest management inventory, the workflow looks like this. At first, you have to decide what are your information needs. How are you going to get these covered? How are you going to measure and calculate what you would like to know? Based on this, you define the survey within the Collect desktop tool. And this chart shows that from once you have that Collect provides 2 outputs. One goes into the Collect Earth assessment, and one goes into the Collect Mobile tool. Collect Earth is a Google Earth based land use assessment tool, and Collect Mobile is the software that then runs on your phone. So to make this clear, you sort of define the survey, and then yes, you either go into the field to collect the data, or you sit on your desktop and do a large area cover assessment via Google Earth. This is what the first functionality of Collect Desktop, and then it has the second one, which is the data management. So you define what you want to know, your field teams go out, they come back and bring the data, and this is where the data management starts. So there is no need to copy sheets of papers and make a new table and summarize the figures that are there. You have everything neatly put into a box, which allows you also to apply a number of data validation checks, completeness checks, but I will come to that later. And once the data is ready to be analyzed, it is supposed to be in the open forest logic. It is supposed to be analyzed using Calc, from where you can start your reporting and your data visualizations. So this is the sampling design that was applied. The National Forest Inventory grid of Georgia is 3.6 by 3.6 kilometers. And here it is an intensified grid of 1.8 by 1.8 kilometers. And whereas in the National Forest Inventory, a cluster is used, that means one observation consists of 3 of those sample points. Here in the FMI, it is just one sample plot consisting sample plot, which I will explain later. So here we have the first of our pictures, and you can see the forest experts using already the open forest tool on the tablet, and one field team consisted of 2 people. Here we have a picture of 3. Well, they're helping, and the idea was that in the middle of the sample plot here, you have this what is a transponder which emits a signal, and the other person has a measurement device which can vary exactly by the measuring the time needed to get the signal. It's a sound signal. To get it back, it measures the horizontal distance. So by means of that, every object that is measured inside the sample plot can be located relatively to the center, sample plot center, which is registered by the XY coordinates are registered via GPS. So not only trees were measured, but also lying deadwood. Also stumps were measured in this case. This is for biomass calculations, or also for biodiversity estimations. And every tree was measured at 1.3 meters. This is one of the big definitions that you have to have beforehand, before you start your inventory. And sometimes people go on very length, on high lengths to follow this definition and get the diameter at the right reading. So the way this was done for the trees was the second worker started in the north orientation of the sample plot and then moved along in a clockwise manner until all the trees were measured. And I mentioned earlier that this is a nested plot design. A nested plot design means that you just measure up to a certain radius, you measure certain diameters. So you have a diameter threshold, in this case at 5, at 10, and at 15 meters, that trees which are smaller than 15 are only measured until 5 meters. Trees and the large trees, the trees that have a diameter of 30 centimeters are measured on the entire surface of the 15 meter radius. Why is this done? Well, it's done to minimize the work, and as you can imagine, a small tree does not add a lot of information to an overall volume estimate because it's very small, and it will only add a very little bit of additional information. The measurements of these small trees are restricted to the smaller nested plots.
Apologies, Alex. 3 minutes left.
Okay, then I will go a little bit faster. So this is the just an impression of what the survey then looks like in the Collect Mobile app, and I think you are familiar with how, yeah, with these kind of how this can be used. What you can see here is that you can imagine now again the paper. Here you have the validation options. So either this is filled out before, or you have a warning if data is missing, and you're strongly supporting the workers during the work, and because they do not run the risk of forgetting information, and you can also easily provide information that they have available directly while they're making the data entry. And this is a typical plausibility check. Yeah, we only have 360 degrees, so in case the typo occurs, the forest worker is directly made aware of this. Okay, then as I mentioned, this is the typical workflow of the collect data cleansing and management. The data comes in, it is checked for completeness. In bigger projects, this is a person who's only in charge of this, so they can report back to the field teams. Did you forget this tree? Or is that a typo? Then it gets passed on to the data cleansing, where you can check with mathematical formulas for plausibility until in the final step the data is considered analysis ready. These are just other additional tools and impressions from Open Forest Collect. I will, due to time issues, I will go through this a little bit quicker. And now we come to Calc. I have 3 minutes to Calc. Maybe Mariana, you can give me 5 more minutes, because yes. What Calc does is, once the data is analyzed ready, it provides a container that brings together your data with the area of interest, meaning in our case, the different forest districts, plus the sampling design that you are applying. There are different ways of generating area estimates. I mentioned earlier in the NICFI, it's a cluster sampling design, or in this case, it's a systematic sampling design. So you configure Calc in that way, and Calc aggregates the estimates that you have derived for your data, and then writes everything into a Postgres database. This is how it's done. This is showing our survey. In this case, per plot, we have many trees. Per one tree, we can have many subcategories, in this case, damages or habitats. This is our area of interest, where you give each forest district. This can also be other strata. This can be forest types. This can be land use types. Has a certain area estimate to it, and then you have to, inside Calc, link your base unit with the respective area of interest or strata it belongs to. Calc allows you to add auxiliary data, like groupings or different categories that you would like to use. It allows you to visualize your data. it allows you to filter data. Here we have filtered out all the zeros, and once the calculations have been gone through, you can of course visualize your new values. I said it's a container. The way to get your data out of this container is by using Excel or CSV formats. You can create your own subset of data. And of course, this is where all the calculations happen. So what you see here are different variables that are defined inside Calc. And then they are moved out, they're exported, so to say, to R, accessible via RStudio, and then they're imported back into Calc. And if you click this button, then RStudio will show you the underlying structure of R for your Calc project, which contains your user functions. These are all the variables that you have defined, and the system functions that are taking care of the aggregation. Once this is running, you press this button and Calc aggregates the data to the the auxiliary data that we have provided. And then Psycho, just like in Calc, in Collect, sorry, is giving you a first tool to visualize some of the calculated values. So that was a quick run through Calc. The visualizations and the access to the data is a little bit limited. So I wrote this slide. I think there's one after that, and then I'm done. This is going beyond Open Forest because it doesn't end here. So especially for issues like forest management inventory, where you're interested in maybe just a subset of the data, or for having a specific way of visualizing this, your way to do this, and this is how the foresters did it in Georgia. You export from Calc and then you visualize it in Excel. Or if you want to have a little bit more like a dynamic system, you need to have a tool that can access the relational database in the Postgres database that is underlying. And Meta is an open source version. I think this image here is from Power BI. Now, Calc is a little bit short on estimators. Usually forest inventories are reported with the standard error, the relative standard error. It's, yeah, I had to do this all externally. And yeah, I wonder if what is going to be the solution once all these inventories become permanent and we have the same observation for the same sample plot on 2 points in time.
Alex, yeah, I'm afraid I have to cut you short.
Yeah, let me check. Okay, I thought I started a little bit late, but it's okay. You can cut me short. This is just, I can go through this slide.
Yes, please.
Okay, it's a little bit of repetition, but I wrote this here as definite posts because these are definite posts in my according to my experience. Maybe as other people might not see it so definite posts. I mean, yeah. So I mentioned it is very customizable. It has these predefined workflows, and that is absolutely invaluable because you're handling such a large amount of data. It becomes very easy to collect such a large amount of data, and you can imagine what mess one might have with handling 50 different Excel sheets at the same time. So yeah, to my experience, it is very stable, and the issue that it is multilingual has made this tool be so accepted by our Georgian colleagues that they're still using it for various new forest management inventories now in the country. This is why I wrote this as a pro, because it is an expert tool. It has a steep learning curve, but it is an expert tool. So as soon as you work with it, and there was just so much that became clear along the way, how to set up and how to work with digitized large amount of data, and there it provided a very good approach for our colleagues to the entire topic. As I said, it is work in progress. Yeah, but that makes it also dynamic, and what is not. So thank you, and I'm sorry that I didn't stick to the time.
No worries. Thanks so much, Alex. It was very interesting. And also to hear something more concrete about how open forest can be applied. And it is amazing the amount of functionalities of this set of tools. Perfect. Let's get to the last presentation. And to finalize, we have the floor to Daniela Limanche. Daniela is a biologist holding a master's degree in tropical forestry and management and a doctoral student at the Technische University of Dresden. Her research interests are focused on theoretical and methodological aspects of biodiversity assessment at global and regional scale, combining computational modeling and remote sensing techniques. Daniela is also a member and project officer at BluoVerda. And today she's bringing us a recent study she conducted on deforestation in the Amazon forest of Peru, a very relevant topic. So Daniela, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. So I think everyone can see my presentation. Okay. So, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you to the organizers. I also thank you to the colleagues that today they present their work, their research. It's been very inspiring, and it's very interesting to know about the work of everyone and how can we adapt these tools to our own work. So today I will change a little bit the end users of our orientation of the work to non-experts. And I will tell you the story of a work that at the beginning, it was just an exercise and then became a study. So in 2020 to 2021, 2020 to 2021, we have implemented the project local monitoring of the Amazon rainforest using open source tools. BluoVerda, together with a local organization in Peru called Arvio. That was inside the framework of Diaspora 2030, and it's a program that belongs to the GIZ. So you will have more information about this, more detailed information, and also the persons that are responsible for this project. You can go to our webpage. So one of our objectives was to working with practitioners and non-expert forest rangers, students. And thanks to the Professor Daniel Valle Basto, that is a professor in the University of Universidad Científica del Sur in Peru, and a group of students, we have developed this study. Our objectives were to evaluate the deforestation in the forest concessions of the Peruvian province during the 2000 to 2020, and also to assess and compare what is the forest loss in different loss area in different concessions types. So that was a question that came thanks to Daniel, because he has a lot of experience and he wants to prove what all the expertise and all the enthusiasts working in the field have come. So as I said, we work in the Tambopata Province in Peru. This just some data about this very nice place is that it's located in the extreme southeast of the Amazon River Basin here in the Peru. And it's among the 3 provinces of the Madre de Dios department. Yeah. And it covers a forest area of more than 3 million hectares. that represents almost 41% of the forests in the regions. For this study, we use 1,707 concessions, and these follow some criteria, like they were granted during the 2000 to 2020, and also that they have updated data in this official source, Georg-August in this case. Okay, so we are going to talk about a lot of forest concessions today. But first of all, I would like to point out something. I am not from Peru, I am from Bolivia. We are neighbor countries. But for me, it was very interesting to work with this project because that had allowed me to know more about the successful and non-successful experience, and also to know more about the management plans and about the management, the forest management, and the conservation also. So I think it's very important because we not only share the same ecoregions, but also we share the same problems, and we discover along this path how the things are being managed. So if we talk about the legal framework, the Peruvian government introducing in the 2000s an attempt to promote the sustainable use of forest resources through long-term contracts and management plans. That was the forest concession. And these rights of use are granted in areas of public domain. So according to the different uses, there are different kinds of forest concessions. So we have here 6 according to the law, yeah. The first one is the logging concessions that are very typical, and also we have the conservation, the restoration, afforestation, ecotourism, non-timber forest product concessions, and wildlife management concessions. For this study, we didn't take into account the wildlife management concessions because we didn't have any of these. And also something that I have to point out, the reforestation and afforestation is not part of the law. That was some categorization that come before in the 70s. And now it's they are changing, and we are going to talk about later about that. And the only concessions where it's allowed to have timber extraction is in the logging concession. So please just take it to that into consideration. So here I would like to show you just a little bit about what is the distribution of the different concessions. And for all the students of the training, we did this in the QGIS. And the information was allowed thanks to the SERFOR, that is Forestal Service of Peru. Okay. So about the methods that we use, as I said, we are with a group of non-experts. So we decide to use a tool that is very easy to use and that doesn't require expertise. We use the AirMap because we would like to compare with another platforms. In Peru, they have their own platform that is very outstanding, very nice platform. There is also another platform that are developed by research institutions like the University of Maryland. There is also the FAO that has their own. And this, the interesting thing is that this platform has connection also to the other platform of the FAO. So we decided to use this because we want to first, and it was a case of exploring what we can do it with this tool. There was a relative new tool, and we also want to know the advantage, disadvantage, and to compare how the data that brings this platform compared with especially with the data that come from the platform from the government of Peru. I won't talk about this today because of the question of time, but it's also very interesting how the results change a little bit. So as I said, this is AirMap. The AirMap is very interesting platform, and it allows the access to the to data, to geospatial data, and also to analyze this data. It's divided. This is the Okay, so it is divided, this is the interface of the air map, is divided in thematic groups: agricultural, biodiversity, climate, emissions, fire, forestry, geophysical, social, hydrology, land cover, etc., land use and land cover. So you can, these groups, the data sets for these thematic groups. And it allows the visualization and of the layers and the generation of statistics of areas of interest. So something that I forgot that is very important, that this platform works together with the Google Earth engine. So I think some of you are very familiar to that, or maybe some of you have heard about that. So that allows that all these calculation and statistics are very fast, and they are gives the capacity to run these statistics to AirMap, the Google engine. So now I would like to show you a little bit what we have done with this small project. As you see, we have all these shape files thanks to the SUF4. And we have imported to the AirMap the shape files, and we have analyzed for every single polygon some data. We have, at the beginning, we just play around to take some metrics, but now I will show you what we did with the global forest change. This, this is a database very well known, and is used for other platforms also, and it combines data from Lancer Imagery from the 2000s. It's a really impressive forest database, and as I said, it results from the time series of land use Landsat images. From this metric, we have obtaining some statistics like the tree cover area and also the area lost. We have synthesized all of this data. Just a moment. I would like to show you if I can do it. And you see my, okay. So that is what basically we did at a very fast velocity with the group, and it is somehow how the methodology happens in the platform.
Daniela, apologies. We are looking at a wide screen, a PDF.
No, just a minute. Yeah, sorry.
No worries. Just heads up, you have 3, max 4 minutes left.
Yes, it's very fast. Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's just it's very, very fast, very fast video, and it shows how the steps of the methodology that we have. So you have an idea for the non-expert how it works. That is just an example, that a demo that we did in Las Piedras watershed, that is the region that belongs to the Tambopata Province. And I did a video because, you know, always we can have problems with connection. So it's perfect. Something that I would like to point out is that this is very, as Alex said before, the AirMap has a lot of advantage. And one of this is also that there is the possibility to have this platform in different languages. When we did this specific program, there was no this possibility, but now with the updating, it is available in different languages. Just the only problem is that for the people who speak Spanish, the explanations of the different layers and metrics, it's just in English. So yes, that is how we did it. And as you see, you can get information about the laws, about the NDVI. There are different thematic layers, and you can also download this information in Excel files, and also you can download the images if you agree. In the case of land cover, you can also have information very updated. So let's continue with the presentation. So now I know that everyone want to know how were our results. Yes. So this graphic resumes what we have done, the synthesize all the information that we have collected from this exercise. So here you can see is the comparison of the forest area loss per concession type during 2000 to 2020. Together with the group, we have identified maybe two breaking points that have a very important effect on the deforestation trends. The first one is, of course, the forest concession granted during almost 5-6 years. The concessions were granted, and also the other important event was the change of competence from the national to regional government. So, and also this is the law, the new law of forests that has changed a little bit how the concessions are granted. So it's also an important point. So what we can see here, I didn't translate because I would like to put in surprise everyone. So according to our data, as you can see here, we have, this is the area of the forest area lost for the reforestation concessions. You can see it's always increasing. Of course, at the beginning, when the forest concessions were granted, we have all the types of concessions are somehow the same, but along the time, the forest loss has increased. The second one is the logget, this line, the brown line, and there's also increasing trend of forest loss. That is logging. We understand that at the beginning, of course, there has to be the use of timber, but the trend continues increasing. And the blue one that was the most shocking and actually very interesting result was the ecotourism. As you can see, there are also an increase of the deforestation at the beginning of the 2014, and even if it's reducing a little bit, it continues with a trend of forest area loss. So we understand that, of course, at the beginning, maybe the use of some wood for construction is understandable, but something that really we should think about is why it continues the trends up. The other two are the conservation and also the non-timber products that keeps the deforestation very low, and it's very satisfying to know that there are some concessions that are working very well in this region.
Dani, I hate to interrupt, but your time is up.
That's the last. So yeah, okay. So just some remarks. We have a very interesting results. But now what we are going to do. So we know we have to start thinking about what is the real role of these concessions in conservation. And we have an accumulative loss of more than 30,000 hectares of forest loss in the concessions, that are not supposed to use for timber. Another important thing is what happened with the post-deforestation landscapes, management plan, measurements, the importance of monitoring the fiscalization that comes with the police and the law enforcement. The forest law in Peru has changed 4 times. That increased the stability of the instability of the management in the region. So we think that is one of the reasons. And also with this very simple tool, we see that we can engage the public, because increase also the accountability for these regions, that we can show the world that there are some concessions that are working well, and there are some concessions that are not working so well. So well, yes, there are a lot of open questions to that, and I think it's very important for not just for the authorities, but also for the public. So thank you very much. And this is the group of students that we work with. This is Daniela, very enthusiastic, and was very a pleasure to work with him. Thank you. Thank you for your attention, everyone.
Thanks so much, Daniela. A very interesting presentation. A little bit sad to see the not so positive news about what is happening within forest concessions in Peru, that is my home country. To leave on a good note, it's really great to hear that EarthMap has finally offered different languages. That makes it enhances the usability of the tool so much more. And with that said, again, thanks for all the participants. Special thanks for all the presenters for taking the time to be here today, and also to the whole organizing team of Weltweit and BluoVerda that have been done such an amazing job for making this webinar possible. Thank you to all the participants, and stay safe and take care. Bye, everyone.